Hey Daniel, soon I will have my own 911 GT3 Cup car. Do you have any tips for me? Hey guys, I'm Daniel Morad, and in this video, I thought it would be appropriate that we collect all the toughest or most interesting questions from my YouTube comment section so far and make a video explaining them. So that's what we're gonna do. I'm going to read a bunch of the questions off my phone, and hopefully by the end of this video, your tough questions and also your interesting or funny questions are answered. Let's get into it. What's the fastest car you've driven on track? Back in 2008 and 9, I drove in the A1 GP series. Those were single-seater cars powered by Ferrari, and they would do about 320 kph, maybe a bit more. But yeah, also the Daytona prototypes. I raced that in 2016. I did the Sebring 12 hour and then also some historic events with that same car just for fun with the team I was driving with. It would do, yeah, probably 320 kph on the straights, maybe 330-ish. So that's the quickest, but it's not about how fast you go. It's about what you, no, I'm kidding. It's probably about the cornering speeds. It's not what you do with it. It's the cornering speeds and the braking. That's the most impressive part about fast race cars. Daniel, can you solve the console wars and do a video based on which is most realistic between Gran Turismo 7 and Forza Motorsport? The reality is they're both not going to be realistic, so it's really going to come down to what is more fun at the end of the day, because as much as they want to label those games as simulation games, they're the furthest thing from reality. So are there some things that can cross over, like precision and placement of the car? Yeah, probably, but the physics are just not even close. So not really worth it for me. I would give you my feedback on what's more enjoyable, what's more fun. You mentioned the wheel lock of 900 degrees is the same as your real race car, but according to Google, the wheel lock of an AMG GT3 would be 640 degrees. Is it really 900 degrees in your real car? Thanks. The reason why I've used 900 degrees and I've said 900 degrees in my previous videos on setting up your force feedback is because, not because that's the actual number. I think I said it. It's more so how iRacing was representing the wheel lock and just how it felt in my hand. So I wasn't, and like I usually do, I don't really go off of numbers. I go off of what I feel is most realistic. So that's what I did with iRacing. I pretty much set every car to 900 degrees and it calculates it in game to make it correct. So, I mean, it felt normal for me. The 900 degrees in iRacing with the AMG feels appropriate. So that's why I use it, but it's not actually 900. You're definitely right. It's 640. The steering lock actually is terrible in real life. It doesn't turn when you're in the pit lane or when you're in the paddock driving around. It's really, really difficult to maneuver the car. So you have to be pretty precise when you're, cutting through the paddock area. Do you think foldable cockpits such as the Play Seat Challenge and NLR GT Lite Pro are worth the money? I currently use a G920 on a desk that is pretty unstable, so looking to improve on that. Thanks. Definitely not. Try to stay away from foldable cockpits. They're not ideal. If you're gonna go from a desk to a foldable cockpit, it's like a little bit of a step up, but you're better off trying to like hold out and go from a desk to like a profile rig, like an aluminum profile. It may not be like the top of the line if you can't afford it or if you don't have the space for it, but I mean, honestly, I would try to figure out a way to get a profile rig, a really stiff one at that. And you can put casters on the frame and move it around if you are limited for space, but try to stay away from foldable cockpits. They're not the best. It will give you a bit better seating position, but it is not it. So I would stay clear of that. Hey, Daniel, hypothetically, if VR had stable max FPS and the clarity of monitors, would you say it could be a better training peripheral than triples? I think yes. I mean, already as is, if you're driving alone and you're not on track with other cars, it's pretty good. I mean, I started with VR and I thought that it brought me closer to the game. It gave me better, or it just in general, it gave me depth perception that I didn't have from a single screen or triple screens or an ultra wide for that matter. So VR is definitely like an amazing way to feel more immersed in the action. There are downsides to it, like you can't drive for too long because your eyes start hurting, it gets really hot, things like that. But I mean, I really enjoy VR. I just don't use it because it's a lot more difficult to set up. And when I get in my rig, I just want to turn it on, sit in the seat, and go. So for streaming as well, it makes it so much easier for me. And pretty sure most of you know, but I stream on Twitch. It's twitch.tv/Daniel Morad. You can check me out there. And also, I'm happy to answer any of the questions you guys have, not just these ones. But if you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer there. But yeah, VR is definitely a viable option. I would use it if it was easier for me just to jump on and go, and also if the FPS was more stable. I think that would be an amazing option. Definitely interested to try it in the future, especially with my motion rig. I think it would be an amazing training tool. How long ago were you using the Logitech wheel, and what kind of racing were you doing in real life at that time? It was probably like 4 years ago now that I was using Logitech stuff, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And at that time I was racing in IMSA. So I didn't really use the sim that much. I quickly upgraded from that. Once I was like, okay, I kind of want to try the sim a bit more, I upgraded and got some other gear, like Fanatec V2 wheelbase and pedals. And it was okay. Like at the time I thought it was kind of cool, but I still struggled with feeling. The moment I upgraded to like SimuCube and things like that, I was like, okay, it's a lot more intuitive. It feels more natural for me to drive. Obviously the stuff's expensive, but it is a lot more intuitive and natural. It feels more like the real car. But to answer your question, probably 2018, 19 actually. Yeah, probably 5 years ago. 18, I had Logitech stuff. Then I slowly upgraded from there. Also, I was racing in the IMSA series. I think I mentioned that already. IMSA WeatherTech series, racing at Daytona, all that good stuff with my beautiful Logitech wheel. Is Thrustmaster a good brand to start sim racing? I personally never use Thrustmaster, but it's pretty much the same as Logitech, I would say. Maybe a little bit better, a little bit worse. It's something I've never really tried. So I would say if you're wanting to dabble into sim racing, probably a good place to start. But I personally don't have any experience, so I can't shed any light on that. Thanks for the comparison, Daniel. Super cool to see this and very insightful. So about my comparison videos from the real car to the sim. My question is that, do you feel the same feeling over and understeer in the sim in the same corners after equal tire usage as in the real GT4? Not really, no. So I would say that's probably where there's a slight difference in the behavior of the car, especially over a really long run. I feel like the fuel level / tire life variation is quite different. Whereas in the real car, you get a lot more rear tire drop off. So the car does move around a lot more and has way less grip. Whereas in the sim, it doesn't really move as much. It feels lazy and just like squishy. So, you know, you feel like it's a little sloppy, but in the real car, it's crazy. There's no grip. If you abuse your tires, the rear tire drop off, especially in the Mercedes, drops like an absurd amount. So it's really difficult. If you don't take care of your tires in the beginning of the stint, you'll fall off in like an incredible amount by the end. It's just more so the repeated abuse on the tires that you're looking for. It's not like one slide that's going to kill you. You really don't lose grip. Like after one slide, you're fine. It's repeated sliding, one corner after the next. That's where you have to really start watching out. And then the tire drops off. But the fuel level, as the fuel drops, you gain acceleration and straight line speed, but you lose a lot of rear tire performance, especially high speed if you're loading the rear tire, or traction off of the corner. So yeah, in that sense, it doesn't really line up one-to-one with, let's say, iRacing, which is the sim I use for GT4. ACC, different topic, but the GT4 and ACC is not even close. So I stay completely clear, as far away as possible from that. It just feels It feels like an arcade on the GT4. And even the GT3 is not the best. You guys know my opinion on that. It's currently not a viable option for me, but that's just my taste. You know, after driving the real car and having the experience of actually racing a, AMG GT3 or GT4 car and then comparing it to the sim with no bias whatsoever. It's just purely because I either think it's good or it's not. So I'll tell you straight up, the tire situation, not the best in iRacing, especially over a long run. It does not drop off as much as it does in real life, which is quite interesting. But you can slide the car once and not feel like it's lost both rear tires. So hopefully that answers it. Why don't the companies go through and use real race car drivers to come up with all of the settings? The default settings should feel completely real. I totally agree with you. I don't think sim companies are utilizing real drivers as much as they probably could, because I think a lot of us would be willing to offer our time to help out. I know that I've helped a little bit in development with iRacing, so testing the AMG GT3 and GT4, and although it's been in a window where it was pretty decent, sometimes with updates and balancing all the cars, it will fall out of that window. So yeah, I mean, I would love to be more involved. Timing is always an issue, especially in season. We're on the road every single week. I'm not home for more than 5 days straight at a time throughout the race season. So it's difficult, but yeah, obviously always willing to help out whoever asks. But at the end of the day, I really would love for sim racing to feel as close to reality as possible. It's one of my passions. I love racing, but I also love driving on my sim and connecting with all you guys and giving you an experience that feels more lifelike. So to put that in one sentence, yes, I would love to work with sim companies, and I don't know why they don't use us more often, but I'm sure they will in the future. The most important item in racing are your tires. So how does iRacing provide real-time PSI and temperature in the game? That is a great question for iRacing. I just drive the car. I don't know how it works, how they're coding it, but at this point, it's not close. The tire situation, it has zero connection to real life. I would love to see that improve where you actually need to manipulate tire pressures, because at this point you just run the lowest pressures on road racing anyway, as it is right now. So yeah, I would love to see that improve, and I'm sure it will in the future. I've seen announcements through iRacing. They've mentioned that they are going to revamp their tire situation, but we'll see when that happens, and I hope it happens soon, because that's definitely an area where it struggles. As much as it's an amazing simulation game for braking, and I think it has the best braking model of any sim, which is why I use it. Braking is the most important part of driving a car fast. That's what separates great drivers and just, average guys that jump in and think they're close. That makes sense. But yeah, the brake technique in iRacing is the closest of any sim. But the tires are very, very far away at this point. But I have no doubt that they're going to fix it soon. I hope. Let's see. Could it be the game physics in iRacing that suits your driving style more, therefore it feels more intuitive and realistic? No. I think that it's just the reason why it feels great to me is because the technique that you need for braking is a lot more realistic to the real car. So it feels intuitive because it's close in terms of braking, how you press the brake, how you ramp the pedal up, the peak holding pressure, the timing on the release. In other games, you brake hard. Maybe, you don't smash the pedal. You brake to 100%, let's say, or even call it 50%. I don't care about the actual value. You brake to a certain value. It's the amount of time that you have to hold the peak pressure that's unrealistic in other games versus iRacing. Whereas in iRacing, they actually factor in aerodynamic bleed off. So as the aerodynamic force comes off the car, you're actually bleeding off the pedal a certain amount. Maybe it's from peak to where you start releasing from the mechanical bleed from when you turn into the corner. Maybe it's 10% pressure that you're releasing. And I don't care about the pressure. It's more so just the actual timing of how you release the pressure and just getting off the brake. That's the most important thing that I'm looking at. And I think iRacing does it the best, which is why I think it's the most intuitive and the most realistic to drive. Don't know if you've used ACC for sim use, but does the GT4 car in ACC feel like the real thing? No. Unfortunately, it doesn't. It's just, I don't know how to explain it, but it's not even close. It feels numb. It feels like, I mean, it's just numb. There's no other way to put it. No parameter on that car actually feels like the real one. So that's it. Next question. How many laps are you doing, including out and in laps, before heading back to the pits for changes? So in general, when we're doing testing, we'll usually do, to get a good baseline, we'll do maybe a 5-lap run, 5-6 laps, come in, make some changes, and then it really depends on the driver feeling and feedback and what we're looking to test. If we're doing anything with tires and longevity for race stints, then we'll try to do longer runs. But if we're looking for really quick adjustments and just feedback on what this did, like what X change did, then it will be 1 lap, 2 laps, even sometimes an out and straight back in. But it really depends on the driver. Everyone's a bit different, and also every engineer wants a little bit of a different read on the car. So anywhere from an out lap to, let's say, 5. That's more or less the range, unless you're doing a long run that you're testing the tire life for a full race stint. Great tutorial. When defending, to create the overlap, should we lift the throttle a bit? Yes and no. I mean, it depends where your car position is, but you need to do everything in a very predictable way. If you have, let's say, a car right behind you and you just suddenly lift off, you're asking to be spun around. So if there's somebody behind you and they're not moving and you just lift off, they're probably going to run into you. So you have to be very tactical with the way you do it. And if you're lifting, it's maybe a few % off the throttle just to allow the car beside you to get a little bit of an overlap so they can't do the crossover on you into the brake zone. So yeah, just do everything predictably. Don't be that guy where you're just like lifting off in random spots and getting run into and then blaming that guy crashing you. Hey Daniel, soon I will have my own 911 GT3 Cup car. Do you have any tips for me what I should do to prepare for a race? Basically, get as many laps as you can get in the car. That's, within your budget, but also just try to understand your car's capabilities, the parameters of the car, how well it brakes, how well it corners. Do it in a spot or a corner or on the straight. You can use the brake pedal just to see how quickly it slows down, understand the stopping power and the distance it takes to slow the car down. In a wide open corner where there's a lot of runoff or space, just try to see how much grip there is in the car and then just put all the pieces of the puzzle together. Thank you guys so much for watching the video and also for all the comments on previous videos. You guys are so engaged and I love reading and answering as many questions and comments as possible. Doing it in this format's a lot nicer because I feel like I can give a more detailed explanation. If you guys have any questions that I haven't answered, make sure you ask them down below. It could be about anything, racing, sim racing, personal life. I'll answer whatever I feel is appropriate. And don't forget to like and sub to the channel because we're in the growth phase. I'm going to be cranking out videos. Again, thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys in the future videos.